What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Chicago Bulls. If you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials in the description as well. And let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as we talked about in the video yesterday, the Bulls are 4-0 for the first time since 1996. I gave you guys some fun facts about the last time Chicago was 4-0 in that video yesterday, including the fact that their current head coach, Billy Donovan, was a 31-year-old first-year head coach at the University of Florida. The last time the Chicago Bulls started a season 4-0. And this is a team that made a lot of splashy moves in the offseason, and as a result, there was a lot of hype around them for this upcoming season, and a lot of people thought they were going to be a top team in the Eastern Conference. I wasn't super confident in that. I had them as a playoff team, but not a very highly seeded one within an Eastern Conference that is very, very deep. And through the first couple of games of the seasons, I don't want to say that they proved me wrong, but it's definitely worth taking a look at their 4-0 start, what's going right for them, what they can still improve and work on, and just ask the question, are the Chicago Bulls for real? So let's take a look at what is going right. And ironically and interestingly, it's defense. This is the biggest concern I had about this team going into the year, was looking at their roster and seeing Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and thinking, where are they going to find quality defenders from? I knew Patrick Williams had the ability to be a defensive player of the year caliber defender down the road, and Lonzo Ball is a good defender, and Alex Caruso is a good defender, but I didn't know if they were going to have enough rim protection to really be a top-level defensive team. And granted, the strength of schedule is not fantastic through these first 4 games, as I'll get to a little bit later in the video, but right now, they have the 4th best defensive rating in the league, and those 3 guys that I mentioned, Ball, Caruso, Williams, have been a really, really good defensive trio. It also helps, not necessarily towards their defensive rating, but in terms of points per game, that they are playing at a pretty slow pace. And they're a really possession-based team right now, which is odd, where they're just winning as many possessions as they can and limiting their margin for error by not having as many possessions, by playing at a slower pace. They're guarding well, they're scoring efficiently, they're not turning the ball over, and again, they're playing at that slower pace, and as a result, you can beat up on some teams that just aren't as talented as you and go 4-1 through the first couple of games of the year. And this is weird because this is not how I thought this team would play. You bring in Lonzo Ball, who's one of the best transition players in the league, honestly, especially at the guard position. He's a really good playmaker. LaVine is a great athlete in transition. Patrick Williams, same thing. DeRozan and Vucevic don't really fit that mold, but just with the guys they brought in, I just kind of assumed this was going to be a high-powered offensive-based team that was going to play really fast in transition. And that just hasn't been the case. But like I said, it's been working for them. Offensively, there are some positives. They're top half of the league right now offensively. I think they're 14th in offensive rating. They're the best three-point shooting team in the league in terms of percentage. In terms of volume, they're the worst three-point shooting team in the league. They shoot the lowest amount of threes, but they make the highest percentage of them. But offensively, they always have some good offensive players on the floor, whether it's DeRozan, whether it's LaVine, whether it's Lonzo Ball, whether it's Nikola Vucevic. They've got 1 or 2 of those guys on the floor at almost all times, and all of them do some different things. LaVine and DeRozan are really good pick-and-roll players. LaVine is a really good high-volume three-point shooter off the bounce. DeRozan works in the mid-range. Ball can play on or off the ball and can work in ball screens. And Vucevic is a really good pick-and-pop player. They can also punish some mismatches in the post at times as well if you ask him to. So as long as they've got other good players on the floor, role players, guys that can play off the ball, and Patrick Williams continues to grow and develop as an offensive player, they're really never going to have a truly bad lineup on the floor when all these guys are healthy. And again, that's really what's been working for them. And lineup-wise, they've got a really good core group of 6 players. It's Ball, it's LaVine, it's Caruso, it's DeRozan, it's Williams, and it's Vucevic. All those guys are playing 27 minutes per game or more at this point. After that, there's a significant drop-off, but they have their top 6. They went out and got a lot of those guys in the offseason. They understand who their best players are and how to play them together. Even though the spacing can be a bit clunky at times, especially if Vucevic is struggling from 3, they have enough good players to have an above-average group on the floor, either offensively or defensively, for the entire game. Whether it's LaVine and some other guys out there, LaVine by himself can create an above-average NBA offense, at least an average one, pretty much regardless of the other 4 players they decide to put on the floor, as long as they fit decently well. Similar things with DeRozan, similar things with Vucevic, and even if they don't have an offensive focal point on the floor for whatever reason, foul trouble, injuries, or otherwise, as long as they've got Lonzo, Patrick Williams, Caruso, some combination of those guys on the floor, they're going to be at least an average defensive team as well. And so they just they just don't put themselves in a position to lose very many possessions in a row. And when there's so few possessions because they're playing at such a slow pace, it works for them. But now we got to talk about some things that aren't going particularly well for Chicago to begin the season in terms of what I have concerns for this group. Number one is spacing. Even though they have the highest three-point percentage in the league to this point, which is obviously fantastic, you need to be, in order to be a really high-level NBA offense, which I expected this team to be coming into the season, you need to have that three-point volume. As I said, they're at the bottom of the league right now. That's an issue. That's something I would expect to improve. But when I think about the spacing of this group in general, apart from the numbers, I do have some concerns there. So DeRozan, we know, is not going to be a fantastic spacer. He's shooting decently well right now through just the first couple of games of the season. All of this stuff comes with the small sample size caveat, of course. But then when you look at the rest of the roster, it's like, okay, Lonzo can space off the ball. Caruso can space off the ball. Levine can, but he's not going to be off the ball a ton. Vucevic. And then what else do we have? I mean, we're looking at Patrick Williams and Troy Brown. And there's just, apart from the core six guys, which is kind of a theme for this roster, you struggle to see where they're going to contribute apart from energy and effort defensively. There's just not a lot of other guys that you're bringing into the game outside of that top six that you really trust to be able to make shots off the ball, and that's a problem. And the concern with that is, like, if you don't have other role guys on the roster you trust to come in and make shots, then you're relying a lot on someone like Vucevic to be a floor spacer for you, which is not the ideal role for him. The ability for Vucevic to space the floor should be a nice, like, extra thing that you get to use. It shouldn't be integral to the offense. It should be, oh, this guy can, he can score into pick and pop stuff, pick and roll stuff. He can post up, but also if we need him to, he can space the floor. Not we need him to space the floor all the time. And so I'm really starting to struggle to see like what his role is in all this if they don't have other role players that they trust to be out there on the floor. Again, you're looking at like Troy Brown, Elise Johnson, Javonte Green, Derrick Jones, who's been beat up and hasn't really played much to start the year. It's a bit clunky outside of that top six, which is a huge concern for me. Just kind of continuing along that train of thought with Vucevic, they don't really have another big. Like I said, they're running like Elise Johnson small at the five. They can run Patrick Williams small at the five if they really want to. But unless Derrick Jones is part of the rotation, they don't really have another big, which is certainly a concern for me because you'd like to have that change of pace big you can bring out there that is just a rim rolling, rim protecting big guy. Once Vucevic comes out of the game, to be a pick and roll partner with these guys, and they just don't have that. Like Elise Johnson is an okay player, but he's way too small to be running the five full time. And again, then they don't have that rim protection that they don't even have when Vucevic is on the floor either. And for Vuce, that's the guy that I'm most concerned about right now. It seems like he's a little bit out of rhythm, even with how well they've been playing to start the year. It seems like he's someone that has some amount of priority within the offense, but it just doesn't fit super well, like hierarchically for me, where it's like, we've got DeRozan, we've got Levine, we've got Ball, Caruso is going to be like this role player guy, Patrick Williams is going to be a really, really good defender, and then there's Vucevic that's out there and he's like spacing. It reminds me a lot on a much lower level of Kevin Love's role in Cleveland when, LeBron and Kyrie and those guys were rolling, where it was just like, Love's a really good player at the rim. He's a pick and pop guy. He's a good post up guy. But every time you look at him, he's just like spacing the floor and he's kind of forgotten about. And it's like, if he's not going to be a good defender either, and you're really limiting what he does offensively because of the structure of the rest of the team, that's a concern. Now, let's answer the question, right? Are the Chicago Bulls for real? Here's the big sticking point for me. The Chicago Bulls, the four teams they have played to begin this season, have a combined record of 2-9. They've played the Pistons, the Raptors, and the Pelicans. Those teams have a combined record of 2-9. So it's difficult to answer the question of, is this team for real, when they haven't even played any real basketball teams yet? There's certainly some positive signs. The fact that they're defending really well is a positive sign. The fact that they've shown an ability to potentially be an above league average NBA offense, even when they haven't been scoring particularly well, is a good sign. And when you look at where they rank within the league from a defensive and an offensive rating standpoint, not the numbers themselves, but just where they rank relative to the rest of the league. Right now, they profile pretty similar to a team last year that was the best team in the Eastern Conference, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers, who are one of the top defensive teams in the league and a top 15 offense in terms of offensive rating for the entirety of the season. That's kind of where Chicago ranks right now within the league, and that points you towards, oh, this team is for real. But basically where I'm at is, my opinion of them hasn't changed a ton in terms of the caliber of team that they are. In terms of what kind of team they are with, oh man, like they might be better defensively than I thought, That's changed a bit, but I still need to see more. I need to see them against some of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and a 4-0 start against teams that are 2-9 to begin the season is not something that's really going to impress me a ton and start thinking that this is going to be a top team in the Eastern Conference. So are the 4-0 Bulls for real? No, not for me personally. I don't think they're a top 4 team in the East. Their strength of schedule has been awful to begin the season, and I just think there are better teams in the East that have better high-quality offensive options than Chicago and more lineup options. They lack versatility. I don't love all their spacing options, and even though I do think they can figure it out throughout the year and be slightly better than I thought they would be before the season, this 4-0 start and the circumstances around it have not dramatically changed my opinion about how good of a team Chicago is going to be this season. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials in the description as well. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments section as well about Chicago in this beginning to the season. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.